This is KUGAN CASSIUS for IFL TV in association with MTK Global. Delighted to be joined by Mr. Barry Hearn. How are you keeping, Barry? Can you hear me?
Graziano Field. Yeah, I can hear you fine. Can you hear me?
Yeah, it's just cut. Go on, I can hear you now. Go on, carry on.
You can hear me? Okay. Yeah, no, I'm feeling good, Cougs. Thanks a lot, mate. Everything's fine.
Okay, yeah, I do want to kind of ask you about your health because obviously we knew you had a scare recently. Do you want to just kind of give us an update on that, Barry?
Yeah, it was nothing big deal. You know, I'd had a heart attack 20 years ago. This one was very mild. I didn't even really had some discomfort. It was all over in 3 or 4 days. Stuck a couple of stents in. With what's going on in the world, I don't want to make a fuss about it. It's no big deal. Move on. I'm fine.
Okay. All right. We'll take your response for what it is. But have you been told to slow down, Barry?
Oh, I don't know. I didn't hear that bit. They told me I'm on a strict gym routine now, Cougs. You know, sometimes as you get older, you'll find out you develop a Peter Pan approach. You still think you're 18 or 20. And I'm 72 in June. I was probably overdoing it quite a bit. Had a big 2.5-hour session. For me, a big session, not for you, the athlete that you are. I had a big 2.5-hour session on the Saturday, got chest pains on the Sunday. So I'm cut now. I'm 35 minutes a day. Can't wait for Tuesday, tomorrow. It goes up to 40 minutes a day. So I'm sweet with that.
All right. Well, it's good to hear that you're kind of back on your feet and resuming to whatever normal life is now.
Yeah, it's an interesting time for all of us, Cougs. It's full of challenges, full of moments where we have to be more creative. We can do two things. We can sit still and feel sorry for ourselves, or we can do something about it. And I've never been the sit still type, and I'm not going to start now.
Good to hear. Barry, obviously, I talk to Eddie regularly about when he believes that boxing will make its return. Obviously, we have a bigger picture, life in general, to overcome first before we can think about boxing. But it seems like things are being put in place for hopefully July by the board. And I'm sure Eddie's working frantically to be ready for that situation if it is to arise. But do you see a situation where boxing will return in July?
I think it has a chance. I think we're all going to be a lot wiser when Boris speaks on Sunday. We're going to see exactly what an ease down of lockdown means. You have to remember that politicians at this time are they have to be very responsible, because at the end of the day, if all goes smoothly on their decisions, everyone accepts it. But if it goes backwards, then it's their fault. And therefore, they're under a lot of pressure to do not just the right thing, but to be perceived to do the right thing. If in doubt, the decision of government will be do it slower. They will never speed up the process because it's too risky for them. That's common sense. I think certain sports, obviously I've been talking to the Minister of Sport, his department, for the past few weeks, every other day. I think things like snooker and darts in our empire will come back earlier because they can easily maintain a social distancing during play. Other sports are bringing about huge financial repercussions, Premiership football, and that's an agenda that's very complicated. In the middle is boxing, where you can't socially distance two fighters because they're trying to hit each other. And at the same time, you don't want to be a requirement to the national health by taking away resource, doctors, ambulances and things like that, which have to be applicable to boxing. So I think July is the most optimistic time for the return of boxing. And I wouldn't be surprised if it was later, because it will be easier for objections to push that sport further back than others.
But just going back to what you said about Sunday, it seems Sunday will be a critical day when we kind of learn what the first steps are to ease the lockdown. It may not affect everyone, but it is the first steps to resuming back to some sort of normality.
Yeah, I think so, but don't expect too much. As I say, it's going to be much easier to do less, much more acceptable to do less, much more risk-free to do less. And now is not a time for taking risks, because we're talking about people's health and safety. So I'm expecting a very low-key Sunday. You know, things like you can go on a picnic with your family. Things like, they may open golf courses because you can be especially the way I play golf, you can be a long way away from your opponent. I'm usually in the trees. So, but I'm not expecting anything really dramatic on Sunday. I think we have another 3 weeks from Sunday before we get to the stage of looking at the data, seeing the decline in deaths and new admissions and critical care unit capacity. And then they may get braver as time progresses. But in the meantime, we're all going a bit stir crazy. I can't say how difficult it is for me, because it's nowhere near as difficult as it is for the vast majority of the population. Young kids in tower blocks and things like that is just horrendous. So I'm hoping that they do ease it. There's a financial implication as well, KUGAN, that the government must be aware of, is the cost of this to the national debt will mean that the next generation will be repaying what we're spending in the next few months. And until we get this country back operating, even within a certain level of risk, then we are digging a deeper and deeper hole. And whereas that doesn't feature above health, it does make the data more relevant to decide when can we get back to some type of normality. And when we do, the obvious repercussion of that will be that live sport returns to our screen at the same time.
Just going back to, obviously, Robert Smith outlined a proposed plan if boxing is to return in July, how it could work. So there's a lot of speculation about people talking about how this close door scenario will actually work. But I'm assuming Matchroom as a company are kind of exploring every single avenue. So when it eventually is announced, you're ready to go straight away.
We are ready to go across 12 different sports at the moment. Look, KUGAN, we're an event company with no events. How do you feel? You know, we happen to be creative. We've started this PDC Darts at Home series. Last night, a bloke in Perth at 4 o'clock in the morning, his time, beat a big fella in Scotland. You know, it's another world, isn't it? And the world is changing, and it will continue to change. So as far as boxing's concerned, as far as any sport in the Matchroom portfolio, we have nothing else to do but to be ready. And we are ready the moment that green light shows on the grid. We're off, baby, we're off. But at the same time, we're not going to jump the gun, and we're not going to come out with anything stupid about June this, or, you know, we can do this. We're not saying anything other than, rest assured, the entire raison d'etre for the existence of Matchroom Sport is to promote sport. So we're ready to go the moment we get the green light.
During this lockdown situation, we find that boxing stories that would normally kind of just be run-of-the-mill stories always get heightened because there's no boxing to talk about. So the ongoing situation around Fury and Joshua, obviously, anytime it's mentioned by anyone, it blows up, Barry. So recently there was reports that talks had been, or have started rather, regarding location. But I mean, Eddie came out the other day and said, look, you know, it's not strictly the cases. But what can you offer to that, Barry?
I think you've got to understand that this world is changing, and boxing's going to change with everything else. And that's going to benefit in some way the sport, because when boxing does come back, it comes back with a plethora of live sport, presumably available at the same time. People like me, and there are other people, nowhere near as good as me, but there are other people out there that promote sport that have a traffic jam of events. So when the green light shows, these broadcasters, sponsors, whatever, are going to have a plethora of sports to choose from. And therefore, only the big ones will get their attention, because it's going to be a very competitive market. Plus, there's going to be a reticence of a lot of people to attend a live gathering in a sporting context. Whether we like it or not, we're all concerned for our own health, our children's health, our grandparents' health, whatever. So there won't be, I think, slightly different amongst the very young market, but from the middle age onwards, I believe people will be reticent to attend a large sporting gathering in the next few months, possibly for the remainder of this year, until they either A, develop a vaccine that puts the mind at rest, or till they get used to the situation. So all this means is big events are going to be so much easier to pull together than small events. Broadcasters will want them because they're looking to wake up from this Cinderella story sleep or whatever. Not Cinderella, Sleeping Beauty. The fans are going to say, oh, I can't miss that. I've got to go to that. Whereas if it was a 50-50 call, they might stay at home, just watch it on TV. So that means, especially in a sport like boxing, it's probably going to be easier now than at any time to arrange the really big showdown fights. And of course, Tyson Fury and Joshua comes into that category. Now, with the restrictions on travel, this is another wild card that may slow down the process of bringing sport down if you can't literally fly from one country to another. No one's going to go and watch Tyson Fury, Joshua anywhere in the world if they've got a 14-day lockdown in the country that the fight is being staged at, for example. So there's going to be lots of complications. But the big plus is that suddenly there is more potential to see better fights, not just Tyson Fury and Joshua. In other words, if a fighter comes back, and I'm anticipating fighters coming back and saying, all right, I've had 3 months in lockdown, I need a warm-up fight. That's not going to happen. There's no space for a warm-up fight. Or I want this amount of money to fight that bloke and this amount of money to fight that bloke. That's not going to happen. You're getting this amount of money and you've got to have a real fight. So this is a quantum change in boxing because we've had this situation with Al Heyman, with Bob Arum, with Eddie. It's been a very competitive market. Suddenly, everyone's in the shit. And it's a new world. And this world won't last forever. But certainly, it's going to be a question of, if you want this type of money, I'll see you in February, March 2021. If you want this type of money, that makes it more attractive, providing the fight's the right fight. Maybe I'll see you in October, November. And it is a quantum change, and fighters will be the last people to appreciate that. But the commercial reality of event companies that don't do events means that they don't necessarily have the resources to cope with the intervening period when we get back to normality, which won't be complete normality. No way will it be until 2021. No way, both from a fan perspective and a broadcaster perspective. The odd fight will rewrite the rules. Tyson Fury and Joshua rewrites the rules. So now you have a situation, and I'm on the outside, so I'm only giving you an opinion here, Cougs. This is not Eddie's view. This is not Aaron's view. This is just my sitting around thinking view. Do you want to do Tyson Fury against Wilder on the terms that have already been agreed and signed for on a previous contract? Answer, no bloody way. Can't afford it. Fight's not big enough. Number one, too much money. Number two, where's the income? Number three, can the various camps, the promoters, can they afford to do it? Have they got the resources to do it? Answer, don't listen to the bullshit. No way. They go bust. So that fight is a great fight. It's contracted. But realistically, does everyone get paid? Then you come across Povetkin against AJ. Not Povetkin, sorry. Pulev against AJ. Without a live gate, it's going to be a very low earning fight for the fighters. The promoters, forget them. Because the one thing about Matchroom is, unlike all these other operators, we have reserves, we have resources. We can survive 10 years of lockdown. No one else can survive 10 weeks. So that's a generalisation. They can survive, of course they can survive, but they're not in a position to invest or to speculate because they don't have the backup money. We do. But that doesn't mean to say we waste it. So Pulev against Joshua, do they both accept that they're on a percentage basis, they're going to earn a lot less money? Does that fight make that fight less attractive? Maybe it does. Maybe it does to both of them. Maybe the better deal is to say to Pulev and to say to Wilder, never mind step-aside money, by the way. They ain't getting nothing. What's the point? Go and do the fight. Go and do the fight. Just step-aside money. Pay you for sitting on your backside? Not going to happen. But pay you to sit on your backside while you wait for the outcome of a fight with a guarantee of the next fight, all of a sudden might look attractive. I'm only speculating. So when you put all these things together in the mix, the one fight that you know you can sell for loads of money, where everybody gets paid and they get paid more than they were getting in their previous fight, is Joshua and Fury. The common sense when they sit down, Fury, I'm getting X to fight Wilder. Do I get paid? You know the market's changed. Joshua, I'm getting X for fighting Pulev. Ooh, that's a bit skinny. What about throwing all the dice out in one go? What about rolling those dice? Tyson Fury thinks he can beat Joshua. Joshua thinks he can beat Fury. They both know they're going to earn far more money on that fight than any other fight. And it's relatively straightforward to put together. And there's no danger under our umbrella of no one getting paid. That might, at the end of the day, make a bit of sense.
What are the realistic chances that not just one but two fighters in Pulev and Wilder do step aside in order to allow this to happen? Because both have to play ball here, Barry.
Yeah, they do. Oh, of course they do. I think it's probably less than a 50-50. Might be 60-40. You know, but sometimes the penny drops. I don't know. I really don't know. I'm only speculating there, Cougs, because if you say to Pulev, you was on Y, but suddenly in this new world, you're only getting X, which is half what you were getting, you're going to be disappointed. And maybe you don't want the fight as much. Maybe you're quite happy to wait. If you say to Wilder, you've got an injury, it's quite serious, you're not going to be around until September, October anyway. You can wait, or do you want to fight the winner and get a lot more money than you were getting for fighting Fury? As I say, these are great days, aren't they? Because we sit there and we have all these thoughts. We've got no power over the situation whatsoever. But if I was gambling on it, I think it's a 3-1 against shot that Tyson Fury ends up fighting Joshua next. And that's not a massive price outsider, is it?
But yeah, you're right. We can speculate about this all day, but
of course, that's half the fun.
Of course, but common sense comes into it somewhere, doesn't it? I don't know what the deal is for Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder, but what I do know is unless they get substantial foreign interest, they've got to replace the gate virtually. They've got to accept lower income from broadcasters who are struggling. There's a lot of doubts in my mind. Okay, moving on from that, Barry. You would have seen possibly a social media exchange between Dillian Whyte and Andy Ruiz over offers that were sent or not allegedly sent. What can you weigh in about this?
All I know is we really love the fight. I mean, I love Dillian Whyte and Andy Ruiz. I like both fighters. I think Andy Ruiz is a great guy and a good fighter. I think Dillian Whyte has become one of my favourite fighters. I think as a broadcaster, you can sell that fight. So it's a big fight, and I know it's a fight that we pursued, and I know it's a fight that didn't lead anywhere. So what can I tell you?
Just a bit of back and forth over what the offer was, what wasn't. Dillian Whyte put some emails out the other day showing what offer was made to their team. But again, some of these stories just get heightened while people have nothing.
Yeah, I can't. I mean, I'm not involved in the offer process, Kugan. So, Eddie runs all that show. He just tells me, I fancy, in conversation, he'd say to me, what do you think about Ruiz and Dillian Whyte? And I say, go and make it. It's a great fight. Go and get it. Oh, I want to. But I'm being selfish. I want that fight because I want to watch it myself. I'm at the age where I don't want to watch tickovers. I love that fight. I think Dillian Whyte wins it, but I think it's a great fight. So I know he made an offer, but I don't know the details of it because I'm not party to that.
Barry, where do you think the future of small hall boxing will lie once we're out of this pandemic?
The interesting thing on all sports promotion is there are 3 tiers of sports promotion. There's the mega fights. We won't even call it boxing because it applies across the board. There's the mega events, there's the grassroots events, and there's the medium-sized events. Historically, and I'm sure it will be the case post-pandemic, the mega events stay as mega events simply because they are special. They sit in a certain level of appreciation amongst broadcasters, fans. The grassroots events, the smaller events, they just tick on anyway. They don't make any money. They don't lose any money. They survive and they do a job. The fight process or the sports process that's under the most pressure is middle-sized events because they're neither one or the other. They cost more money, but they're not as big as. So the medium-sized events, which we might call big-name takeover fights, we might call fights that have come through the ranks and they don't necessarily have got the awareness. They're medium-sized events. So I see small shows. I don't see a problem with them. I think they'll be realistic. They will be, I think, a good breeding ground. They are a constant source of work for people, officials, referees, fans, fighters. I think that small hall shows, they'll be fine. They'll be fine. The big shows will be fine. The middle shows, they're under a lot of pressure.
I was asking because obviously a lot of the small hall shows are solely reliant on ticket sales, and if there's no crowd allowed at these shows, then it's. But
the ticket sales are small. You can, when you're talking at the levels we're talking about, a 20 grand ticket sale on a venue, for example, is very important for a small-time operator that has to get ticket sales to make ends meet. But for a bigger promoter, 20 grand ticket sales is neither here nor there. It's a couple of overseas deals, Doesn't have the significance. I mean, we've got it on darts as well. We're looking up in darts, the ticket sales are a huge percentage of its total revenue. But even without it, and you've got to think differently in this world, even without it, you make a profit. You don't make as much, but these are not the same world. You've got to adjust your thinking. You mustn't be greedy. You've got to be realistic. So ticket sales on small hall shows, yes, they're going to be a problem for the small-time operator that's 100% reliant. But anyone with a broadcast partner really should be big enough to be able to say, it's not going to make a big deal to my life. And I need those small hall shows. The most important thing in sport is activity, beyond even money. If you have a sportsman that doesn't get a chance to practice his sport, there's no point in him being a sportsman. So you have to create activity first. Money comes created second.
But the majority, Barry, of the boxing shows that happen outside, obviously, the TV shows that you put on and BT Sport put on, etc., are the small hall shows that kind of keep the sport alive across the country. So they are the majority of the shows that happen, aren't they?
Well, they are, and they will continue to happen because there will be a demand for them, but they're going to have to live in the new world. We don't know how severely affected this new world's going to be, but it will have an effect in terms of, ticket prices may have to be cheaper to drive people. Don't forget, a lot of people are losing a lot of their savings during this period. They may not have the money to go out. That's another issue. They may not have the health desire to go out. And people have to be realistic. So small hall promoters are going to have to be realistic with their expectations from the show. Fighters on those cards will have to be realistic or the show won't be able to go on. And ticket prices are going to have to be realistic, independent on what the average fan has got available to spend. So there's going to be pain throughout, but sensible allocation of pain, as long as it's not one-sided, means that everybody gets through. And as I say, within 12 months at worst, we'll be back to normal. So if you've got a business plan that can't survive 12 bad months, it's not a very good business plan.
I hear what you're saying. All right, Barry, listen, I'm not going to take up too much more of your time. Have you got any closing words you want to give to people watching? Any points?
Well, I mean, on a personal basis, look, I don't know why, but Eddie said I might be in danger of getting popular. I can't believe this, but I was inundated with lots of very, very, it was humbling to get so many people say, I hope you're good. So just to everybody, because I can't reply to everyone, there was such 47,000 likes or whatever. And I don't know how many hundreds and hundreds of emails, but it gives me a chance to just say, number one, I don't have any intention of going anywhere. Number two, I'm not going to be an easy touch, even if I'm getting old and sick. And number three, I really appreciate the good wishes that came. It meant a lot to me, and I'm not one for the emotional stuff, but thank you very, very much.
On that note, Barry Hearn, thank you very much for talking to IFL TV. Like I said, good to see you up and about. Didn't expect anything less. And hopefully we'll catch up with you again soon.
My pleasure, Cougs. Stay healthy.
Thank you very much, Barry.